to both our guests. Yeah, because we know there are things that have been we know that you guys have been applying for these jobs and you were not getting them and all of that. So we are hoping you have questions and a lot of them at that point. So we have a panel which is going to help you guys with the questions that you have. Um, you mentioned that we always have to tailor our CVs based on the advert. So which basically means that there is no one size fit all CV or a one size fit all a one size fit all what do you call cover letter. Now there are apps that people use these days to write their cover letters or to write their CVs and stuff. I just wanted to know if that has any disadvantages or if you guys can like see when we have applied this chat GPT these days, where, which writes essays to for people and all of that. So I wanted to know if there's a way that you guys can see that no, this one used chat GPT, this one used an app to write this cover letter or something like that.
Thanks, Makatu. Just to comment on that, yes, there are very nice apps that do give very beautifully looking CVs, and I've come across them when I'm helping my friends, or like I said, my side hustle is to edit people's CVs, and if they're unemployed, it's free. If they're employed, I charge a fee. So guys will submit to me a nice CV, but it doesn't have South African required information like your demographics. It doesn't specify gender, ethnicity, etc. So you can use those, but make sure that you still include what is required from a South African perspective, because you'll find that those CVs are international domain in terms of the server that you put your information into. First tips is to maybe try and do it yourself, and make it aligned to what you see, because that's also personal information that you don't know where it's going to end up. That's from just a security perspective. Another thing that I've seen, we all know those people who go to the internet cafe and ask the guys at the internet cafe to draft them a CV. Do not do that. Type your CV out yourself. Do it yourself. And yes, my colleague said you must always have a PDF version, but you must have a Word version that you will convert into PDF each time. Remember, by tailoring your job to the advert, because your qualification is IT or it's HR, there are other jobs that you can apply for that are not necessarily named HR, but would require an HR qualification. For instance, you can be a business manager or a business administrator because you've done business management as part of your studies, though it's not the core qualification. So if they're not looking for an HR person, you can tailor that role. I mean, you can tailor your CV to fit that role if that is what you are interested in. Most part is the irrelevant qualification will get you the relevant job, but sometimes the qualification can get you a job similar to what you've studied. So tailoring it means adjusting it. There's no one size fits all. Each job has its own key responsibilities, skills required, attributes required. So if you don't demonstrate that in that CV when you're applying for that role, it's a bit difficult. Yes, it's a daunting task, guys. We mass apply every day. So try and get it as most applicable as it is to the advert as you can. I think as a tip, also just to add on there, private sector jobs, you need to look for them on a Friday or a Monday. Government jobs, there's a public service circular that comes out every week. You can just go to the DPSA and get a circular, look at all the government jobs in one page. But private sector jobs usually run for 1 week. So you need to either check on a Friday or a Monday because they will expire in the next week. Thanks. Okay, thanks for that question, Lerato. It's a tricky one. I don't want to lie, because there's an attempt in the public service to disallow employees to do business with the state. So for the purpose of completing that form, I would limit myself to say where you've said yes, and then where it says give detail, you can always refer to annexure in the, because remember in the application form is the ZA3 first, then it's the CV, then it's other stuff that accompanies the CV. So yes, and then maybe say please see accompanying letter, third page of CV, so that you don't limit yourself. So that when they do actually page through it, they see, okay, there is a declaration and an affidavit. It could be a deterrent into hiring you because, there's that, like I said, there's that need to get rid of people who are possibly or would be, in terms of not corruption, but the conflict of interest element of it. So it's I think some people are staying away from maybe appointing people of that nature, but be honest, say yes, and then say, please see attached annexure on the application form. And I think I want to just comment, sorry for stealing the mic, to comment on Neville's comment around hobbies. Personally, do not include hobbies in your CV. Those are things that you can discuss at the interview, because, I mean, it's part of the conversation. One of the questions that could come up is, tell us something that's not on your CV, or what do you do in your spare time? So that's a conversation starter. It's not even a scoring question whether you have or you don't have hobbies on your CV. It's just a conversation starter. It's just an interesting fact. But personally, I'd refrain from adding hobbies on your CV. Thanks. Champion and my colleague can also assist. Usually, uh, some adverts will specify how to apply. Firstly, do you send via post, courier, or hand delivery? Or do you email, or do you upload onto a portal? So it'll specify. But for preparation's sake, always have your documents scanned separately and combined, right? So that you always have them saved in whatever required application format, right? So if it's the two-page CV plus all supporting documentation, ID, driver's license, matric, diploma, other certificates in one PDF, it could be too large sometimes, but try and figure out how to save it into a smaller sized PDF, and also try and have those documents saved separately. It all depends on the algorithm that, or rather, if you're applying on a recruitment system, yes, they might require them separately, in which case you will need to upload them separately. Another one would say, no, one document is applicable, which is the CV. So it's always based on that application platform or that advert that specifies how and what you should do. Thanks.
You can go ahead after Pumelelo. Pumelelo, over to you.
Thanks, Makatu and Zandile, for your question. Your first question had two items, uh, mentioning your race and gender. All right. So we all know that in South Africa we have what we call the Employment Equity Act, right, which wants to redress, the history in terms of employment dynamics or demographics in the workplace. So one of the key reasons that, mentioning your race and gender, particularly if there is an employment equity requirement to hire from a specific demographic, whether for instance, when you come into the workplace, you'll see that it's diverse from gender, race, religion, etc., etc. Although religion is not necessarily mentioned in a CV, but the listed grounds like uh, race and gender is very important. So it could, if there is an employment equity requirement for that job, you stating it there while at shortlisting can score higher, because at that point when we're shortlisting, as like I said, we can't verify, or we can't assume you are who you are based on your name. So it's very important. Then the second point is, your current city, and whether or not it affects your application. Unfortunately, it does. Your current city does affect your whether or not you it is we can hire you. I've sat in situations where, honestly speaking, we can't recruit people outside of Western Cape because it's relocation is a problem, settling in is a problem. We've seen that people are struggling to adjust and they go back. So it from a business perspective, sometimes to move a person or to uproot a person from where they are, it is undesirable. However, as an applicant, you don't want to be dishonest, because if you don't write where you are, or you write that you're in Cape Town, wherein you are in Umtata, and we want you for an interview tomorrow, how will you really come to Cape Town? So be honest. But what I always advise is that put a bracket. If you say current city Mtata, put a bracket that says willing to relocate and close the bracket, so that they see that, okay, wherever you are open to relocate. And one of the things that I did forget to mention in your CV, if you have a vehicle, that's extra points for you guys. I know as a first time applicant, you don't even have a license. But if you are fortunate that you have a license and having your own vehicle, write it in the CV that you have a license and your own vehicle. The second point, you had asked about, in the ZW3, it asks about years of experience. Can you write months or years? Months is fine because it's less than a year. And, from a numerical perspective, if you have months, would rather have it, mentioned in the CV. So you can write months there so that we can see the split. When I say we, HR professionals, not that I work for the government, but we can see that you have worked this year here and this year there. Thanks. Over to you, Kerry. So to give that number, all right? So in government, it's quite clear. The advert gives the salary, the range that is can be between 10 to 15 based on qualification or whatever the case may be. But in the private sector, definitely use pay scales, search online, what is market related, and also what is relevant to you, right? For me, right, first time job entrant, you take what you get, right? But the second job you get, you should know that you will not move for less than maybe 5,000 Rand onto the next job, or 8,000 Rand before tax. Remember, factor in tax. So for me, that's always like a round figure to say, if I'm earning 5,000 Rand now, I'm going to get 8,000 in 2 years in the current job. So when I move, I need to move for 10. So you have to do the maths for yourself in the sums. Thanks. Yes, thank you. Great question. Online courses, all right. I think online courses can add to whatever basic skill you would have studied through your formal qualification, because for the most part, the online courses are not really NQF aligned or anything. It's more of an interest or adding to an existing type of skill that you have. So I'm supportive of that, because I also do my LinkedIn learning just to know, to grow my skill, but not as a basis. I don't think having it in your CV as well that you do it, it's great, but for scoring and hiring purposes, the minimum requirement is the formal qualification. Also, depending on the industry that you have studied in, there are skills based courses, and where you need that technical skill, they can add value to that as well. Qualifications, going up to PhD, when the job is requiring a minimum, it's yeah. So when you reach the minimum, the maximum is really not relevant because you've met the maximum. Some specific internships do give, at an entry level, they will say if you have honors, 8,000. If you have masters, 9,000. If you have PhD, 12,000. That's at entry level. But once you're in, there are different conversations to recognize that you are qualified. But from an entrance perspective, not necessarily, it's not going to hurt your application, but it's not necessarily going to add to that. You can start at the bottom. The fear is usually that You are a PhD graduate, you know more, you know better, you'll be bored, you are likely to be a flight risk, which means you won't stay in the job. It's just those types of dynamics if you are highly qualified, not necessarily overqualified, but highly qualified. Yes, thanks. Thanks for that question. Do you want the good news or the bad news? Both is important. When there is a need to do a social media search, it is done. And whatever is found there can negatively impact your hiring. Even when you have already started working in a company, you can be taken through disciplinary actions for utterances which may have brought your employer, if it is mentioned on your social media profile, to disrepute. So personally, one, I am not on Twitter. I only resuscitated my account for this session because it's very toxic to my mental health. On Facebook, I'm unemployed. On Instagram, I don't work anywhere. Only on LinkedIn you will see where I work because I work, and it's a professional profile. So when you are on social media, not to say I endorse whatever negative behavior that you might be participating in, but keep your profile private and refrain from, those social media comments, likes, shares, because dependent on the policies of your current employer, it can affect your employment. But when there is a need to, as part of the background checks, we check for criminal record, we check for qualifications, we check for credit record, and if there's a need, we could do social media, particularly if you are in the media and communications space. Usually it's dependent on the role itself that we do social media search. And if it is found, therefore, that it is undesirable, we won't take you through. Thanks. Kerry, maybe you can add? Thanks. I just thought of something now that I usually do at least once or twice a month, is to go on Google and Google yourself. You'd be surprised at what you find. Go on Google, type your name and your surname, and click search. Thanks. Look, a true qualified HR professional, will have professional conduct, etc. And obviously, they would not be acting alone if they were to block a potential candidate that just happens to have a higher qualification than them. We don't catch feelings as HR professionals. We see people's salaries that are higher than us, and we don't get hurt about it because that's our job. So if it were to happen in that situation, that is, it's not right. It's morally not right. And as exactly what Kerry has said, that it's in our best interest to get the best people to work for the firm, and that's it. Thank you. People can give you a plug, literally, because you know them, to say, hey, there's a job somewhere else, just apply and you'll see. That's what you call network, right? But a connection for someone to get you in, you know, it, let me be realistic, it does happen, but it shouldn't happen. Ordinarily, you should get it by merit. You should qualify for the job, be shortlisted for the job by merit. Anything that happens outside of that formal process, run away. If you don't want to report it, just step away from that, retract your application, and it is what it is. Don't involve yourself in yes, there's been scandals where, people are asking for other things other than what is required in the job. Don't do it. Yes, it's hard, times are tough, but your conscience will be clean, having walked away, than knowing how you got in would compromise you. So just try your whole best to keep your integrity intact. And that's the best I can say. I always try for merit. If it wasn't for you, move on. You'll get another one. Yes, it's easy for me to say because I'm currently in the statistic that is employed, and I have tasted unemployment, but it's just, you wait it out. It'll come. Thanks. Thanks, guys, for the opportunity. Like I said in my opening remarks, time is a precious commodity, and you taking your time to actually listen to this is a very appreciated, and you spending or using your data wisely is very appreciated because you could have been watching something else on another Netflix channel, but you decided to listen to this. Very important. For me is, once you've done all the work in terms of, updating your CV, etc., every Friday for government jobs, go to dpsa.gov.za, download the circular, look for all jobs in government in one space. Every Friday again, or during the course of the weekend, go on to LinkedIn Jobs, if you've created a profile, and easy apply from there. Register your profile on pnet.co.za, indeed.com, careers24.com or .co.za, and Career Junction. Those are the three search engines that you're likely to get leads to other jobs. So do that. It'll help you get alerts going into your emails for relevant jobs so that you can keep up to date. There is a slump that you will get. You get tired of applying for a job, and then all of a sudden, after 3 months, a week of motivation comes from you, and then you start applying again. It'll happen. Just stay in there. So long as you have all the required docs, it's easy to just quickly press apply, and then you'll never know how that ends up. Thanks, guys.